We begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis, where it says Avol l'Shabbos loy. So the Gemara here was discussing a person that is making a kinyan of chazaka and a karka that's hefker, that a ger died and left it as hefker, and there were two properties side by side from this ger, and there's a separation between them. The Gemara here is discussing that the separation between them is with a metzer or a chotzav, whether with a pathway that separates between them, or a chotzav is grass or trees that are planted that have roots that go straight down, and they're usually planted on the border because it doesn't spread out to the sides. So this metzer and chotzav, by a karka, it's going to be a separation. Meaning if you made the chazaka on one side, the chazaka does not help for the karka that's on the other side. Now the Gemara then said, benegeh to peya and benegeh to tumah, where there's a question whether you have to give peya separately from both properties, or the Gemara had a shayla benegeh to tumah, where there's a suffix whether you entered into the property, whether you'll be tumah or not. Over there was a machlokes between Rav Asi and Ravin. What Rabbi Yechanan's opinion about this is whether it'll be a separation or not. The Gemara brought that Ravin said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan that by peya and tumah it will be a separation. So now, b'hemshich to this, the Gemara will discuss this regarding Shabbos as well. So the Gemara says, Avol Shabbos. However, regarding Shabbos, loy, these things, the metzer and the chotzav, they're not considered to be a separation. Unlike what Ravin said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan regarding peya and tumah, that it is considered to be a separation. Now the Gemara will explain where's the relevance for this regarding Shabbos, as we'll see here in the continuation of the Gemara. Rava Omar, Rava says, Afile le'inyan Shabbos, even regarding Shabbos, it will be a separation. Now the Tanya, so the relevance on Shabbos for this is for what we learned in Abraisa. A person on Shabbos carried out something that's like the half the size of a fig on Shabbos, and he put it down. So this is the malacha of Hitzah, the one carries from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. And in order to be chayiv on this malacha, there's a specific shear. What's the shear? It has to be the size of a gregeris, the size of a fig. And here the Rashbam says the reason for this is because less than that size doesn't have the chshivas to be chayiv. By Shabbos it has to be meleches machsheves, which means it has to be significant enough that the action that you're doing has significance to it. Less than the size of a gregeris, a fig size, has no chshivas. That's what the Rashbam here says. There's a discussion about this in Achreinim, because in other places, it's mashma that the shir, like all other shiurim in Atayre, is just a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. But the Rashbam here gives this, says that it's based on the concept of meleches machsheves. So if you carried out half of the shir, a half a fig, and v'yinicha, and you placed it down in the Rosh Hashanah, so you did a half a chatzi shir, v'chazav v'hoitzi chatzi gregeris acheres, and then you took out another half a fig as well, v'helam echad, and it's all in one forgetfulness. One helam, the person forgot at Shabbos, he did this malacha b'shegi. Chayiv. So we combine the two actions that he did, the two shiurim, and all be chayiv. B'shnei alamois potter. However, if he took out the first half of gregeris and he forgot at Shabbos, and then afterwards he reminded himself that it's Shabbos, and then there was another helam, he forgot again, and he took out another half. So because there was a yediyah, there was an awareness that it's Shabbos in between, that yediyah separates the two actions, and it's potter. It's a one half malacha, another half malacha, and it doesn't combine. Rabbi Yosi says, and this is where the point that we're discussing is going to be relevant, that if it's b'rishus achas, if he took out one half a gregeris and another half a gregeris into the same rishus, or behelam echad, that is, yes, thank you, behelam echad, if he took it out all in one helam, so it is all one state of forgetfulness, and then, as we just said, you could combine two halves of malacha as one. But Rabbi Yosi adds, if it's b'rishus achas, if you took it out to the same Rishus Harabim, then chayiv. Then you can combine the two and it'll be chayiv. But if it's b'shtei Rishuyos, if you took it out to two different Rishus Harabims that are separated one from another, then even if it's in the same state of forgetfulness, potter, it'll be potter. Just like the idea we said divides the two actions, so too if it's two different Rishus Harabims, you can't combine these two to be one malacha. The malacha is to take out this kegregeris over here. It's one half here, one half there. You can't combine it. Taisus points out that even though by Shabbos you find by the malacha of ksiva that if you write two letters you chayiv, even if you wrote one letter here and one letter in a different place and you can't combine it together, you'll be chayiv. But over here it's not that way. Over here the malacha is to be mitzi one kegregeris, and if it's in two different rishus harabims, you're going to be potter. Now, regarding what exactly separates one Rishus Harabim from another, here is where what we brought before. When you have a mechzav the trees or this pathway, the metzer, will that be considered to be a separation between one Rishus Harabim and another that you would be potter? So here the Gemara brings three opinions about what separates one Rishus Harabim from another. Rabbi said about this, what separates one Rishus Harabim from another is only if you have a Rishus HaYachid, which is a place that it's a different Rishus Min HaTorah, that if you would carry from that Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus Harabim, you would be Chayiv Chatos. That's considered to be a significant separation between one and another Rishus Harabim that you'll be potter if you carry it out half to one and half to another. Aval Carmelis. However, if all that separates between one Rishus Harabim and another is a Carmelis, now Carmelis is a place that is 4 by 4. It's daled al daled, tfachim at least, but it doesn't have the things that qualify to be a Rishus HaYachid. It's not high 10 tfachim, or it doesn't have a fence around it. So therefore, it's not a Rishus HaYachid, and it's also not a Rishus Harabim because you don't have the Rabbim that walks there. It's not the size of a Rishus Harabim. So therefore, this is the Carmelis. It's a Rishus Midrabanan. So that Carmelis, that will not be enough of a separation between one Rishus Harabim and another.
However, this is a public place, right?
It is an open place, yeah. Abaye says, I feel a Carmelis. Even a Carmelis can also be a separation between each Rishus Harabim that you can't combine the half you took out here and there. So this Carmelis is only a Rishus Midrabanan. But nevertheless, Lagabi, this concept to divide one Rishus and another Rishus, it's significant enough to separate between them that you'll be potter if you took out half here and there. Avol Pisla, but if it's a log of wood or a piece of wood that separates one Rishus Harabim and another, and we're talking about a log of wood that goes through the entire length of the Rishus Harabim, and it separates the two, that will not be a separation. Now this Pisla that the Gemara mentions here, the Rashbam says, either we're talking about a Pisla that it doesn't have the height of 10 Tfachim, which would make it a Rishus for itself, or it doesn't have the space of 4 by 4 Tfachim, and also doesn't give it a significance to be a Rishus for itself, not even a Carmelis. This is what would be called a Mokim Petur, and therefore does not create a separation. That's what Rashbam says. Tosfos, however, says that this Pisla we're talking about here must be a Pisla that is, it has the width of 4 by 4 Tvachim, because if not, it won't create a separation. It's just that it doesn't have the height of 10 Tvachim. That's why it's not a Carmelis, and therefore you will not be a potter for this. That's what Tosfos over here says. That this Pisla, Tosfos holds that this Pisla really does have a halacha of a Carmelis, because it's 4 by 4 Tfachim, but it's not a space for itself. It's just this piece of wood, and therefore it's not as chashuv as a regular Carmelis, and therefore it cannot create a separation between two Rishus Harabims.
Why is it a Meitzer?
This Pisla, that's different than a Meitzer. A Meitzer is broader, and it's a pathway, and it serves as a border. Pisla is just a piece of wood. It's actually, as we'll see, the Gemara is going to explain now that this Pisla is similar to the Meitzer. Yeah, let's see right now. So let's talk to the Gemara. And our third opinion on this, Rava says, Afila Pisla, even this Pisla, this log of wood that separates the whole Rishus Harabim to the two Rishus Harabims from each other, will serve as a separation. Now, this Pisla that Rava here says will serve as a separation is the same point that Rava said before, that Afila Le'inyi Shabbos, that the Meitzer and the Chotzov is a separation. This Pisla is the same thing, like the Meitzer and the Chotzov. Now, the Gemara adds, V'oz the Rava L'taimei, what Rava says here follows his reasoning that he said elsewhere, the Amar Rava, Rishus Shabbos ki Rishus Gittin Dami. The halacha regarding the Rishuyas of Shabbos that we separate, that he just said here, is similar to what's said regarding the Rishuyas by Gittin. What's the halacha of Rishus by a get? If a man who wants to give his wife the get, and she doesn't have a property for herself, so he lends her his own property that she could receive the get now on his property, that it'll be hers. But now, if in that property that he lent her, there is a pisla, there is a piece of wood, a log of wood that's there in the property, and he throws her the get, and instead of landing on the property itself, it landed on that pisla. So Rava says that over there it's not going to be a get because he lent her the property. The property does not include that pisla. That pisla is considered to be a place for itself. So just like by get, Rava said over there that pisla is a rishus for itself and it doesn't take effect. Similarly here regarding Shabbos, to separate one rishus harabim from another, the pisla, or like we said before, the metzer and the chotzav are considered to be significant enough of a separation that the two rishus harabims will separate one half malacha here and the other half malacha there, that it doesn't combine. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to the halacha of chazakeh, making it chazakeh in order to acquire the properties. So we were talking about two properties side by side that have this separation between them. However, ein sham loy metzev loy chatzav. If you don't have any separation between these two properties, not a border of a metzer, this pathway in between, and not a chatzav, not these trees that are planted in between. What's the halacha? If you're being machzik in one property, will the chazakeh be including the other property as well? So the Rashbam here actually points out that the Gemara really discussed this before. The Gemara discusses what happens if you have a few properties together and there's no borders between them, and you're machzik in one. So how could you be machzik to be kaina at all? And the Gemara before brought that the way to do it is that when you're doing the charisha, as long as you did charisha, you went from one end to the other, and you came back and did a second row from one end to the other. You're going to be kaina the whole area, even if it's a few properties. But here the Gemara asks this question again, and the Rashbam says the Gemara brings it up again because the Gemara knew that Rabbi Yochanan had a different opinion about this, and here the Gemara is going to quote what Rabbi Yochanan held. So what's the halacha regarding this? Pirish Rab Mirinis, Mishmai Rab Mirinis said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. This whole sugi here comes behemshach to Nunhei and Baralov. We have brought Rabbi Yochanan's opinion about the subject. Kol shenikras al shemai. Anytime when you have a few properties together, but people refer to it with a singular term, that it's one sada, it's one property of one person, so then you can be kaina by one action, one chazakah in one area, the whole thing. Hey Chidami, what's an example for this? How is this? Amar Rav Papa, the Karile Begargusa de Planya. For example, you refer to these properties as the one property that is getting water from one pit of Pliny that belongs to so and so. So when it has that name of that one property that of one person, so then it's all considered to be one property. So the Gemara Yosef Ravacha bar Ivya Kamed Ravasi. The Yosef Ka'amar, he was sitting in front of Rav Asi, and he said, Mishmei Rav Asi bar Chanina, in the name of Rav Asi bar Chanina, Chatzuva mafsek b'nichsei ager. A Chatzuva creates a separation in the properties of a ger that he left, that you want to be zeicha in. You make chazakah in one half, you're not going to be zeicha what's on the other side of a chatzuva. Now here the Gemara spells out, my chatzuva. What is this chatzuva we're talking about the whole time? Amrav Yudah Marav, Shabai Tichem Yeshua Yisrael Esaretz. This is what Yeshua used to create the boundaries for Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. So as I mentioned, this is a tree that grows with the roots that go down, doesn't separate, it doesn't spread out to the sides like the trees of the tree, like the roots of a tree usually, and that's what's used, and that's what Yeshua used on the borders between one shevet and another when he divided the portions of Eretz Yisrael. Connection to this, the Gemara brings also V'amar Rav Yudah Amarav Loimana Yeshua. When you look in the Psukim in Sefer Yeshua, you find their names of cities. You only will find Ela Yares Ha'imdois Ala Gvulin. You'll only find the names of cities that are on the borders. So some Rishonim say that this means only the cities that are actually on the borders of Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. But Taisus here says it refers to the borders also inside Eretz Yisrael, because you do find cities in Sefer Yeshua mentioned inside Eretz Yisrael between one shevet and another. Those are the cities mentioned. In connection to this, the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yudah Mashmuel, Kol sheher'o HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe chayev v'maiser. Whatever the Eibusher showed Moshe Rabbeinu, as it says that the Eibusher didn't allow him to go into Eretz Yisrael, but then in Parshas V'zayis HaBracha it says that by Yar'eyu Hashem es kol ha'aretz es ha'gilad adon. Rashbam here brings the pasuk. So the Eibusher showed Moshe Rabbeinu the whole Eretz Yisrael, whatever he saw, chayev v'maiser. That is Eretz Yisrael, and that's chayev v'maiser. La fuke mai, what is this coming to exclude? La fuke kaini knizi kadmaini. This comes to exclude the areas of kaini, knizi, and kadmaini, which were also promised to Avram Avinu in Bris Bein Absarim that Eibusher will give it, but they're not going to be chayiv and meiser because Moshe Rabbeinu did not see it, and Eibusher showed Moshe Rabbeinu the entire Eretz Yisrael, which is going to be chayiv in the mitzvahs. The Mefarshim explained that Moshe Rabbeinu desired to go into Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara says not to eat from the fruits, but to fulfill the mitzvahs. So the Eibusher didn't give him the ability to enter into Eretz Yisrael, but he showed him the whole Eretz Yisrael. So he showed him that area of Eretz Yisrael where Yidden are going to be chayiv to do the mitzvahs of Maestros and so on. But whatever he didn't see is not chayiv and Maestros. That excludes Keni, Knizi, and Kadmaini. The Rashbam has two pshatim for this. The Rashbam says either this refers Yidden lost Lavai. After Yidden will conquer and get Keni, Knizi, Kadmaini, even then it will not be chayiv and Maestros. Or the Rashbam says even before Mashiach comes, anytime Yidden would conquer any area of Keni, Knizi, Kadmaini, even if it becomes part of Eretz Yisrael, but it will not be chayiv in Maestros, because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't see this. The Rebbe speaks about this, and also in a Sikha that everything that Yidden have has to come and has to be based on Moshe Rabbeinu, just like Torah itself. Moshe Kibbel Torah Misinai, the Yidden, the mitzvahs of Eretz Yisrael also have to come through the koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is only the places that Moshe Rabbeinu sees, and therefore it doesn't include Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni. Tanya, Rab Meir says, what are these places? What's Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni? So there's a few opinions about this. Rab Meir says, Naftucha, Arba, V'Shalma. That's the names of these places that are Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni. Rabbi Yehuda, Har Seir, Amoin, Umayav. That's Keni, Knizi, Kadmoni. Here there's a discussion in the Shainim about this regarding Ammon and Moav. Places discusses this here because Yidden did conquer certain sections of Ammon and Moav. So l'chayre Yidden already got Ammon and Moav. How could you say that that's Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni? Places says that there's two parts of Ammon and Moav. Ammon and Moav really Yidden are not allowed to conquer. The Gemara says Tiru b'Sichai, Sichai first conquered it, and then Yidden got it from Sichai. That was only a certain section of Ammon and Moav. Here we're talking about the part of Ammon and Moav that Sichai did not conquer. Third opinion, Rab Shimon Oime, Adiskis, Asya, Vaspamya. That's Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni. The translation of Asya and Aspamya in the Aruch, it says that Asya is Ashkenaz, which l'chayre is Germany, and Aspamya is Sfard, which l'chayre is Spain. So that would mean that Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni goes all the way into Europe. I'm just saying what I saw in the Aruch. But, over there they say that it's Damascus, and what else?
Asia Minor, and I don't know what this is.
Okay.
Aspamia.
Okay, that's Aspamia. The Gemara many times when it wants to bring an example of a very far place, it uses the name Aspamia.
Which means what?
Yeah, far place. I'm just
Spain.
telling you what I saw there. It's Spain. Yeah. Okay, Zoktei Lige Mishnah. This is coming back to the halachas of Cheskas Gimel Shanim. So you have to have Eidim that testify that you were in a property for 3 years. If you want to have a presumptive status of being the owner of the property. So here, the Mishnah says, what happens when you don't have Eidim that are telling you about all 3 years? You have different sets of Eidim for each year. So Zakta Elige Mishnah, you have 2 Eidim that come and testify, first the Mishnah says actually the halacha about having Eidim. You have the Eidim that testify for all 3 years. And they're found to be Eidim Zaymimin. A second set of Eidim come and say about the first group, how could you say that you saw that this person was here 3 years? Those 3 years you were with us in a different location. So then the halacha is by Eidim Zaymimin, Vasisim Lo Kashazama, Mishalmim Lo Yesakal. They wanted to cause this person to lose his properties, they have to pay everything. And when the Mishnah here says Akal, the Rishonim say not only the value of the property itself, but also the fruits that the person that they wanted to say that it belongs to him that he ate in this 3 years, they have to pay back as well. Everything they have to pay. Now, another thing that some Mefarshim point out is it must be that the case here is that the person that they testified on his behalf that the property is his is not occupying the property at that time. Because if he is, there's a rule by Kashazamam, which Rashbam brings there, Kashazamam v'loy kasherasa, that only when you testify and you intended to cause a loss by your edus, then the punishment of Kashazamam, that they have to pay that amount applies. Over here though, if they testify and Bezdin accepted the testimony and this person is living there, so then it's already done. So it's not Kashazamam. So it must be that that person is not in the karka right now. Sagt die Mishnah weiter.
He's not in the karka. He has to be there physically. I mean,
yeah. That's not an chanami, but it's only if he's actually occupying it. If he's not actually occupying it, so then it's called zamam. Shnayim barishaina. Oh, here's the case that I mentioned before. What happens if you don't have the same edim for all 3 years? You have 2 edim for the first year, shnayim b'shniya, 2 edim for the second year, shnayim b'shlishis, and 2 edim for the third year. Mishalshin b'neiim. So then, what happens if all these edim turn out to be edim zaymimin? Another person comes and says, all of you are with me somewhere else. So now, how do they pay the kashazamam? The einish of kashazamam is divided between them. Another halach regarding edus on a chazak, shloisha achim. If you have 3 brothers, so now brothers are possible to say edus together. But ve'echad, and then you have one person that he could testify, each one of these brothers could testify about 1 year that this person was there. But then you have one individual that he saw all 3 years. Mitzdaref imam. So he could come and say edus with each one of these brothers separately. Hare elu shalosh ediyos. It's so regarding saying eidos, it's considered to be 3 separate eidosim. I'm not going to say that because you had one brother that said for the first year and another brother for the second year, so there's a problem here that they can't testify. No, one brother that says for 1 year together with this individual, another brother says eidos on another year together with the same individual. It's different years. It's not the same eidos. So therefore, for that, it's considered to be a separate edus, and it's kosher. But v'hein edus achas lahazameh. But regarding the hazameh, so over here, if you mazim all of them, you have to be mazim all of them together, and then the kashazama, as the Mishnah just explained, you divide it between them to pay the kashazama. For that, it's considered to be one. What it says in our Mishnah that you could have different sets of eidos for each one of the 3 years, and that qualifies to prove the chazakah is not like Rabbi Akiva's opinion. The Tanya, because in a brayso we learned as follows: when Abba Chalafta, his father, went to learn Torah by Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri lilmud Torah. V'amri Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri etzel Abba Chalafta lilmud Torah. Or others say the other way around. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri went to learn Torah by Abba Chalafta. Omar lo, so he said to him, Harei she'achla shon rishayna b'fnei shnayim. If the first year you occupied a property in front of 2 edim, shniya b'fnei shnayim, the second year in front of another 2, and shlishis b'fnei shnayim, the third year in front of another 2. So mahu, what's the halacha? Could you use 3 separate sets of edim to prove your chazakah? Amalai, so he said, Harei ze chazakah? Yes, it is a chazakah. Amalai, so he answered him, I agree to your opinion, but I want you to know, Rabbi Akiva chaylik b'davar zeh. Rabbi Akiva disagrees with this matter. Shahaya Rabbi Akiva would say about this case, davar v'loy chatzi davar. When it says in the Torah, al pishnayim edim yakum davar, the word davar is extra, and the Torah is saying that in order to testify on something, and you want to be mitzi mammon, and you want to create a status with your edus, you have to testify about the whole matter. Here, each set of edim is testifying just about a third of the matter. So therefore the edus doesn't work. You have to have one set of edim that are testifying for all 3 years. That's how Rabbi Akiva applies the drasha of davar v'loy chatzi davar. Now the Rabbanon, however, the Rabbanon that disagree, this is our Mishnah here, that also that holds that you could have different edim for each year. So hi davar v'loy chatzi davar mayav delay. This drasha that the edus has to be for the whole matter and not for a half or a fraction of the matter. How do they dash in this? Where do they apply this? Obviously, in this case, they don't apply it. So where do they apply this? Says the Gemara, if you would say that it applies to the following case. So here the Gemara is going to discuss the halacha of a girl that to prove that she's a gedayla, and the siman, one of the siman, to prove that she's a gedayla is shtei saras, the 2 hairs that grows that prove that she's a gedayla. So over here, the question is, what exactly do the edim have to see in order that it should be a full davar that she's a gedayla? So if you would say the following, that when it says in the Torah, davar v'lei chatzi davar, it's coming to exclude a case where echad omer achas begaba, ve'echad omer achas bekreisa, where you have one aid that saw 1 hair and another aid that says he saw also 1 hair, and they didn't see it mamish in the same area. So each one is just seeing 1 hair. So it's such a case where each aid just saw a half a davar. Each one saw only half, and therefore it's not. You can't combine this to be an aidus. That's where we are memayit a chatzi davar. But the Gemara says that you don't need a miyat of davar v'le chatzi davar, because hi chatzi davar and v'chatzi or chatzi edasi. It's not chatzi davar. The way the Bach says, you read it hi chatzi davar, chatzi edasi. It's not chatzi davar. It's really a chatzi edos, meaning you don't even have 2 edim that saw anything that will make her a gedayla. It's 1 aid that saw 1 hair and 1 aid that saw another hair. So therefore, for each here, you only have 1 aid. So how are you b'chlal thinking to combine this as an eidus? You don't need the drasha of chatzi davar. Ella says the Gemara, according to the Rabbanon, the case is l'mu'utei shnayim oimrim achas begaba v'shnayim oimrim achas bekreisa. When you have 2 edim that saw 1 here and another 2 edim that saw another here, it's there that the Rabbanon say this is what's called a chatzi davar, but not the case of chazakah. Here, by the chazakah of 3 years, it's not called a chatzi davar. Okay, now what's the explanation for the difference between the case of 2 edim, each one saw 1 here, and over here 2 edim, each one saw 1 year? It sounds to be very, very similar. What's the difference between them? There's a few different pirushim in the Rishayim. The Rashbam's pshat over here is that when it comes to the 2 hairs, because the 2 hairs are there at the very same time, over there, the Torah says that if you only at the same time saw half of the story, 1 hair and not the other, so then you can't combine it to be an edus. One here is not a raya that she's a gedayla. One here, the Rashbam says, could be just a shuma, could be something which is that doesn't mean that it's a sign that she's a gedayla. But by the years of the chazakah, which are not in the same time, this first 1 year and then later comes the second year, over there, that's not included in davar, v'loy chatzi davar. That's the Rashbam's
How do you know
here.
that Adim saw the same hair?
No, over there, again, over
Maybe
there,
they saw the same hair.
no,
One
no,
hair.
it's clear. Each one saw begaba, one saw bekresa. So each one saw a different hair. So over there, each one saw separately. It's something else. Okay, but over here, this is the Rashbam's pshat. Other Rishonim say that over here, when it comes to the chazakeh, even seeing just 1 year, there's something significant to that itself. What if it turns out that you only have those edus of 1 year? You don't have the edus of the other 2 years. The words of those edus are significant, because then that means that this person actually does not have a chazakeh, and then the fruits that he ate in that year, he has to return to the original owner. Whoa. So because there's already significance to that edus, even if you divide that year separately, you can't call it a chatzi davar. But by the here, just 1 here is a shuma. It doesn't prove anything. So over there, it's called a chatzi davar. It's another pshat in Rishonim. There's more pshatim. This is the Gemara itself doesn't spell out the difference here, but that's some of the pshatim here on this. Omer Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said about the edus for cheskas gimel shanim. Echad omer achla chitim. If you have one aid that comes and says that this person was here 3 years, and in these 3 years he was eating wheat. Ve'echad omer, and another aid comes and says that he was there the same 3 years. That's really what Rav Yehuda means. And achla sa'irim, and he ate barley. This will be a chazakeh. So as I just said, the kavan of Rav Yehuda really is both of these eidim are testifying regarding the same 3 years, but one says that it was wheat and the other says it was barley. But in the continuation of the Gemara, Rav Nachman here asks on Rav Yehuda. Rav Nachman understood that Rav Yehuda must have meant that one aid is testifying for one set of 3 years, and the other aid is testifying for another set of 3 years. Meaning, the first aid is testifying for year 1, 3, and 5. And another aid is testifying for year 2, 4, and 6. Because one is saying wheat and the other is saying barley. They're contradicting each other. If it's the same set of years, someone's lying. So it must be that they're not testifying about the same year. And Rav Yehuda was saying that we could combine it as a chazakeh. So therefore, Maskef Rav Nachman asks on this, Elamayata. So if this is the case, Echad Omer, if one aid comes and says, Achla, Rishayna, Shlishis, V'chamishis, that this person occupied this property the 1st, 3rd, and 5th year. And another aid comes and says, Achla, Shnia, Revias, V'shishis, that he ate here. He occupied the property the 2nd, 4th, and 6th year. Could we combine this to be a chazakeh? This doesn't qualify as a chazakeh. We learned before in the Perek here that one of the rules about chazakeh is that it has to be consecutive. It can't be mufuzares. It can't be spread out 1, 3, and 5. It has to be 3 years, one after the other. So how can we use these two eidim here, that each one is testifying about different years, so it spreads out the years from each other? How could this be a chazakeh? Amalei Rav Yehuda, so Rav Yehuda says, Hachi hashta. How could you compare? Hasam, over there, the case that you're saying, B'shata, the kamasid mar, like kamasid mar. The year that one aid is saying testimony for the chazakeh, the other is not testifying. It's different years, so therefore you can't combine them. And each one is testifying for a chazakeh that doesn't qualify because it's not consecutive. But over here, tarvayu b'chodesh kamasadi. Over here, what I meant to say is they're both actually saying eidos on the same set of 3 years. So what are we going to say? What's the reason why I could accept these the two eidim, even though one is saying wheat and the other is saying barley? The reason why I accept it is because ben chiti l'sa'ari lav adataya de inchi. Between wheat and barley, people don't necessarily see the difference, and we don't consider this to be a contradiction that for sure someone's lying here because they weren't paying attention to whether it was wheat and barley. That's not the significant point there. The significant point there is the fact that he's occupying the property. So therefore, it's considered to be a good chazakeh.